Hey folks, welcome to a new video. So in the last video we sort of went through the observable pattern or the reactivity pattern as such. It's not a pattern but the concept of reactivity as such to understand how it normally works or how it normally handles the thing. One change I made in this, like in that analogy was, so that analogy had like one screen in every device, right? One screen in every device. Whenever it hits 100, you pull the lever. Whenever it hits 100, you pull the lever. What I changed there was I made it a big screen on like where all the employees can see it. Like since let's say the boss decided it's not very efficient to add one like every employee with one screen, since that will cause much more issues, like let's say the values might not be in sync or there can be some difference. If one device goes wrong, that employee cannot bear it, plus the cost or whatever, right? So you can make it up whatever you want. So basically, let's say the employer decided to put a screen on top and is like, okay, now go ahead and pull the lever whenever the value changes, not whenever the value hits 100. Whenever there is a change in value, pull the lever. So let's say it has 69 in it right now, so whenever it hits 70, pull the lever. Or it has whatever, right? So let's put 69 here for now. Whenever the value changes, the employee needs to pull the lever, like I said, whoever is observing the screen, right? So one important concept here is observing the screen. So when you observe, you are asked to react to whatever event is happening. Observe, react, event. So sort of like, so there are the employees who are in the workplace has opted into see the screen, look for the value. So they are observing for values and they have to react to it as the employer instructs them to, that is pulling the lever, right? So how do I not observe something or unsubscribe from something, right? So let's say this fourth employee falls sick, he didn't come. So the work that was assigned to him won't be done since he is not able to observe how the values are changing in the screen, since it's not possible, since it's not here, right? So he has sort of opted out from this activity and he has sort of unsubscribed from it, right? So that's one thing to understand, subscribe and unsubscribe. So whoever is here, they have sort of subscribed to the change in values here and they will perform the action based on that change, and this person has unsubscribed to it, right? So that's the concept of subscribing and unsubscribing. And yeah, so basically till now what our analogy is doing is we have multiple devices, we have multiple people. Whoever joins the company has a playbook as such, so that they know what to do, and they are added to the assembly line or whatever you call it, right? So they are added to the workforce as such, and when they are there, they are subscribed to that particular event. The event is changing of anything on the screen, and then they react to it and perform some action. The action is pulling the lever, right? And someone who is on leave or someone who didn't come is sort of unsubscribing from the event for a particular given duration, right? So that's what, assuming that the world revolves around this particular screen, if you look it from that perspective, this would be sort of an analogy which would fit in here, right? So let's try to implement the whole thing, right? So what we had was, we had sort of a playbook for employees, right? So if we were to simulate what we discussed to code, how would we write it? So let's say class, because we need to reuse it for every employee. Let's say it's an organization and such. Playbook for employees, and then we do this. Whenever an employee joins, what happens? How do you translate joining an organization to like coding? Initialization. What happens when you initialize? You define a constructor. We have a value, and what we do is this dot value equals to value, and this dot listeners listener equals to, let's say, this one. So listeners are the employees of the organization. Value is the value that you are seeing on the screen. So currently we just created a playbook and we don't have any employees as such, right? Now we have the value, we have the listeners. Now we need a way to connect both. What does connect mean? When you are seeing for the values, you should be able to actually see them to tell if it has changed or not, and then perform the action associated with the change, right? So we need some way to see the screen. Currently it's not possible. So for that we can sort of have a simple getter, and then we return this dot value. And another thing that we need is to change the value. So one thing is to see the value, but if the value never changes, that employee will never pull the lever. So you as an instructor or you as a employer need something to change the value as well, right? So we do set value, we do new value, and then we do this dot value equals to value, and we do this dot listeners dot for each. We have function, and then we do function. So let's call it something else. Let's call the listeners the employees, employee actions, let's call it for a good name. So this is employee actions, action, and it performs the action. Let's say pull lever, right? So employee actions, pull lever. So whenever there's a value that is set, the employees are pulling the lever. So that's the observability pattern that we had, right? So whenever you are setting the value, if the value changes, the employees pull the lever, right? So now we have the concept of subscribing and unsubscribing. So there can be an event that we can subscribe to, there can be an event we can unsubscribe from, right? Like we discussed in the last video, or in this video itself, I think. Subscribe, we pass an action. Actions are basically functions. I'm calling it action so that it's easier to understand here. So you are sort of making someone subscribe to an action, and after that whatever action you are making them subscribe to, they'll start performing until they unsubscribe it, right? So we do this dot listeners, not listeners, employee actions dot push. We do an action, and then what we do is we return an unsubscribe function from this as well. Why do I keep making a mistake? We return this dot employee actions equals to this dot employee actions dot filter. Let's what to call it, pull lever or whatever. No, this won't be pull lever because action can be anything here. Existing action, we copy this, we do existing action not equals to action. So this is like the cleanup function on the unsubscribe function. So this is sort of clearing the employee out of whatever action they're supposed to perform. So we are sort of removing that action, right? So that's what clearing the action means. Since that action won't be performed, we are removing it here so that the next time the value changes, it's not executed here. Yeah, so that's a basic sort of translation of whatever we discussed to this. And for now we will have one playbook for employees, as in how would multiple playbook for employees look like here, right? So multiple playbook would look like, let's say you have 1 screen, 2 screen, 3 screen, you have different sets of people observing from different screens, right? So that would be playbook for multiple organizations. Let's say there is a constraint that one organization can have only 1 screen for now, just for simplicity. But if you translate it, that's what it would mean. So multiple organizations, multiple playbooks, multiple values, multiple listeners. That's what. So okay. So this is the whole playbook for employees that we have defined till now. And in the next video, we'll sort of go across how we would see it in action, right? Now we have built the organization, we have set up the playbook. Now we need to hire people and put them in action, like if you think of it that way, right? So yeah, I hope this was helpful. I hope it was sort of able to explain how we would translate the observable pattern that we see in real life to coding in the simplest manner possible. There is a lot of things there, but this is the simplest implementation I could think of. So yeah, if you have any suggestions or if you think I can add anything more here, please feel free to suggest. If this was helpful, share it with your friends, maybe drop a comment and like this video, and yeah, see you folks, bye.